Hey guys, what is up? Swim here, and this is going to be the first of a new series that I'm starting that I'm currently calling Meta Update Mondays. That's a work in progress title. I might change it, who knows? But basically, every Monday I'm going to be making a video talking effectively about, the meta in this last week, how things are changed, what's new, what's going to be different. And I think it's a format that fits Runeterra very well because, of course, on Monday, depending on like what time zone you're in, you will have the weekly rollover that will have like a lot of new crafting materials. And basically in Runeterra, because you only have a limited amount of resources in the system per week, because you don't have players crafting all the cards, the meta will likely probably shift more and more each week, and it won't be so fast to effectively stabilize like it would in another card game. So it's going to be basically what's good this week, what's bad, like, what are the meta implications, what might be a certain counter to this next thing, opportunities to explore, everything you'd expect for a meta snapshot, right? We're going to be showing off some deck lists, not all of them my own. I'm going to be showing off a lot of deck lists that are doing very well at the top of ladder. And basically, the idea is it's just going to help you get started on, what to craft this week, what would be a good idea. So this episode, I'm not going to get super in depth. This is just kind of like a starter. Next week, we're probably going to be able to get a lot more in depth. I do want to actually pull some statistical analysis using data from Mobalytics, as well as talking with a lot of other top players and basically figuring out where things are looking, what decks are going to be good or not. But since I don't have all that set up yet, this week is going to be fairly opinion driven. All right, so getting right into it, where did we expect things to be at? Well, the meta has shifted quite a bit in the past few days already. The first thing that really came out hard is Dawn Spiders, which is a list. This might be a slightly outdated version. Effectively, Dawn Spiders is a list that did extremely well. It's a list made by myself, Precipic, and Nib. And basically, the idea is it's very proactive, kind of like point slammy value. You get like just a ton of points on the board, and you've got like, your cleanup cards like Ross as a finisher. This list did very well for the first like day and a half, maybe 2 days on ladder, and started to really fall off when a lot of people were countering it with mostly elusives, but also a little bit Braum as well. And I'll take this part to point out that every deck I show is going to be linked in the description of this video in a pinned comment. So if you want to look at any of the decks, some of them I'm linking are going to be changed by the time you look at them. So for an updated version, make sure to look at the pinned comments. So with this list, basically, we have tried to make some changes, like running a few meta responses, like 2 Stirred Spirits, 1 On Guard, and early on, like 2 Detain. These really do help, these meta answers, because, Detain is really good against, like, Braum and some of the elusives, and the challengers really help you smack down elusives boards. But for the most part, I think that elusives is just too much of a threat to this deck. And its power level, Elusive's power level, will probably single-handedly demote this deck to tier 2, in my opinion. This is still a powerful deck. It's probably going to be very rampant at low levels of play. But as you get higher and higher and Elusives become more and more prevalent, this deck will start to struggle to perform. Overall, Shadow Isles is proving to be not nearly as strong as me and a lot of other high-level players were really worried that it might be. And I'm actually pretty relieved I was wrong about that, because I was thinking that Shadow Isles would be a pretty major threat to the meta, and even though they have probably the highest diversity of different decks, it feels like basically a lot of them just gets too countered. So, for example, let's get to my next point. Basically, Ionia is emerging with elusives in a really powerful way. There have been basically a lot of these elusive decks running around on ladder. There's versions that run Demacia as their second color, there's versions that run Freljord as their second color, and there's versions that run Noxus as their second color as well. And basically these decks are very strong. I might call them overpowered at this point in time. But the high power elusive units, basically the ability for them to buff in the hand and just be at really high stat amounts on board. The high power cards like Green Glade Duo, Conspirator, Shadow Assassin, and Kinko Lifeblade in particular. These 4 elusive cards have very powerful effects, and when combined with, the uninteractable hand buff, the only thing you can do about the elusives is effectively try to remove them with certain spells, because they're often buffed out of, removal or challenger range, and of course Deny backs that up. So there's kind of like that interaction between just a handful of elusive cards that happens to single-handedly be, I would say, carrying Ionia to victory. And that's kind of like, basically, Shadow Isles is seeming like it is ending up with a ton of like tier 2 decks, but Ionia, on the contrast, is like one region that has like one tier 1 deck. I don't think Ionia is great at doing a lot of other things, but basically Shadow Isles ends up just getting edged out. Okay, so what do the different elusive versions look like, and what are they actually accomplishing? So I'll start off by showing my version. This is a version that I'm looking at with this list, which is basically sort of like a burn combo style running Demacia. And this is based off an original concept that I was working on. It actually looks very, very similar to that. I think I wasn't running Fleet Feather Tracker and back-to-back in that deck, but it was a deck that I had in the preview patch 2 about 2 months ago, and it ends up looking fairly similar. This is just a very, very powerful combo deck. There is Relentless Pursuit to basically double your attack, and you run a lot of buffs, and when your elusive bodies are very powerful and you have Deny on your side to basically stop your opponent from upsetting the board, you gain pretty significant inevitability over the game, where the opponent, if they can't block your elusive unit, will kind of just lose, right? But a very, very common thing is the Freljord version as well. This is Petrify's deck. You might know Petrify from Gwent or Artifact. And this is a version of basically in Freljord. A lot of people have their own versions for like Freljord. There's a bunch of different ones. You know, some of them are running like many different like tweaks. Like this one, I think most others aren't running Avarice and Marksman, for example, from what I've seen. But this is a fairly like standard one, all things considered, in terms of what this deck is set out to accomplish. Again, it's the same kind of principle. You are buffing things, especially elusives. The biggest thing Freljord offers is Omenhawk as well as Braum, two pretty powerful buff targets as well. When you buff Braum up, he does a really good job of kind of controlling the board, and his challengers allow him to do pretty well in elusive mirrors, and Omenhawk is a fantastic target to hit with Navor Conspirator. Sometimes with a deck like this, you just like Omenhawk turn 1, Conspirator turn 2, Omenhawk turn 3, and then like turn 4, you draw like a double buffed Shadow Assassin or something like that. And when you play like a 3 mana 4/4, a 3 mana 5/5 Shadow Assassin, there's really not a lot the opponent can do about that, right? Because it's outside of normal removal range, and when they go to use like some specific removal, you've, again, got Deny on your side. So this is, in general, a very, very powerful concept, right? I could show a bunch of lists all day, but effectively, the idea is there is a lot of different elusive decks running all over ladder, and this has been kind of the case for the past, I would say, 2 days or so, and this is kind of like setting the pace for the meta. Now, this is effectively tier 1. I would say it's probably a bit overpowered, and it's very likely that some aspect of it will get nerfed, but there are counters, and a lot of people are starting to emerge with, you know, different ways of countering the elusive meta. So a big question is, how do you counter them? Well, there's 2 big ways. One of them is to rush down the opponent very, very quickly. Because, of course, elusives, you know, spend some resources on the ability to not be blocked. If you put all your resources as a deck into, like, full aggro, basically just go at the opponent's face, sometimes you will be able to gain the upper hand. I don't know if these decks will have an amazing win rate against the elusives, but at the very least, it makes it more of a fair fight, right? I think it's probably at least a 50-50 with a well-tailored aggro list. I'm going to show you one example here. This is Super JJ's discard aggro that he has been running on ladder, and again, there's a lot of different versions I could show you. This is meant to mostly be like a meta report. I'm just showing you this version. He's been doing very well with this, and effectively the idea is just, you know, kill your opponent very, very, very quickly. He called this like Smork list, SMORK. And of course, you know, there's a reason why. You just kill very, very fast, and you have like disruption tools that are going to be fairly helpful against elusives as well, like Mystic Shots and sometimes Blade's Edge. So there's a bunch of other ways you can run really aggressive decks, you know, pretty much anything with like Noxus, or some things with PNZ for Jinx as well. You can run both, of course, in a package like this. You can run something with like Noxus, Demacia, very, very face aggro. Again, you have to go like right in if you want to be able to like get a good win rate against elusives. The other answer is something like this. This is Nib's Cold Shoulder deck, and basically what this does is tries to use very specific control tools to have a good way to be able to counter them. In this case, those are Trifarian, Glory Seeker, and Culling Strike, and even a bit of Shatter, right? And of course, good slowdown tools for like Harsh Winds when they are going for the kill. Right, so one of the things about elusives is they dodge most normal removal ranges. A lot of elusives, like for example, when you buff the Kinko Lifeblade, it comes out at 4 health. That's pretty much unkillable. 4 health is really, really, really strong in this game, and most normal removal can't kill it. But cards like Culling Strike and Trifarian Glory Seeker end up doing very, very well against that. So instead of trying to outrace the elusive deck, you run specific cards that are able to counter their high stat lines that don't lose to denial, though of course Culling Strike is deniable. But the Glory Seeker is very, very premium in that matchup. This is a pretty cute list. It's very like mid-range, Frostbite, and we're running some buffs and Trifarian Assessor as well. Assessor is really, really cute here because when you get some board buffs, with just one buff to her off of like Hearthguard or Omenhawk, she draws off of herself as well. So she can draw you several cards, and basically it is just kind of like a mid-range tempo deck built around Frostbite and teched against the elusive option. So how do the 6 regions line up? Well, Ionia, as of course being the kind of like centerpiece of this elusive combo package, is pretty good right now. Just the idea of, you know, this one archetype in Ionia, I think is completely carrying the region, and should it get like nerfed or maybe possibly like really hard countered, you know, we'll see, then I do think Ionia will have a really, really, really strong dip in power level. I don't think its other like archetypes that it offers are very powerful, not nearly to the level of this whole elusive combo. But elusives right now don't really have great counters in the game, so they manage to do just fine, and they can combo with Demacia or Freljord, or even Noxus, very, very well. Demacia and Freljord are great supplemental regions. You can run them with Ionia, and Shadow Isles is hitting a lot of decks as well, just the ability to effectively pair with Freljord for like more stally, kind of control-y style decks, or, you know, Demacia for like proactive tempo style decks, gives it a place in the metagame as something that will counter the aggro decks effectively that are trying to counter the elusives, right? It's sort of a bit of a triangle where like face aggro might beat elusives, elusives will beat like mid-range board-based decks, and mid-range board-based decks will beat face aggro, right? If that makes sense. And that's Dawn Spiders would be an example of a mid-range board-based deck, right? So that's going to be kind of like one of these sort of rock, paper, scissors relationships happening here. And Shadow Isles, Demacia, and Freljord all have access to these kind of like mid-rangey board-based value tools. Noxus, of course, has good access to like just face aggro tools, and you can run it with PNZ for, you know, a discard style of aggro, or maybe even with Demacia. I've seen a lot of people experimenting with like Noxus Demacia face aggro or Noxus Ionia face aggro, right? Those are really, really good, just like full aggression combos. I would say PNZ, Piltover and Zon, is probably the region that is the most troubled right now, trying to find a home. Like I said, they do fit into some aggressive decks, right? But I would say most of their options feel very weak, and they do feel pretty left behind overall. But that's currently how the 6 regions are stacking up as of now. So those are some decks that are going to be doing pretty well right now. The big question for you guys, if you want to like, you know, have a high win rate on ladder right now, is, you know, do you try to play elusives in different forms? Do you try to like play one of these decks, or do you try to be one of the ones to counter them? To be perfectly honest, that's going to depend on you a bit, but I would recommend actually, you know, if you do want to get easy wins right now, especially against like the lower ranges of ladder where a lot of people, because it's a little bit behind, right? It's sort of a trickle down effect. Upper levels of ladders like trickles, and right now like you can see a pattern where basically like even like basically 24 hours after game launch, like towards the upper end of ladder, people were already countering Dawn Spiders with elusives. Even like 4 days after launch, right now, at the lower end of ladder, there's not a lot of elusives, and there still are a lot of Dawn Spiders. So it's a really, really great time to climb those ranks, clean up on people that are a few days behind on the meta, basically, right? and get Elusives in there and get a high win rate, right? And you can pick whatever deck you want. Obviously, I'm biased, so I'm going to recommend my own with the Elusive Burn deck, but there's many, many options, right? Anything from like Demacia, Freljord, and Noxus is a good second color, and basically like every streamer has their own version of these decks, so you can pick whatever you want. Yeah, so that's basically how things are going to be looking for this next week. I have also updated all of my other lists as well. Like, for example, my ultimate control list, I've added in a couple of Browns and Rhymefang Wolves to help basically, develop board presence and make sure we have answers for, being able to own the board a little bit early, basically making it a little bit less of an all-in, just full control, try to play all spells, and, accepting that we do need to occupy the board a bit to be able to deal with these elusives, and these challenger units really do help quite a bit. So that's basically it. That's going to be the meta report. I'm personally going to be taking this Elusive Burn deck tomorrow to Ranked Ladder. And I guess it's today for you guys because I'm recording this on Sunday. But today on Ranked Ladder, I'm going to be climbing with this personally, and probably for the next couple of days, I'll be rocking this until I, maybe try to find something different, or maybe it gets nerfed. Who knows? But that's it. That's like the, kind of like meta update. I wanted to keep this one short. I plan on doing these videos pretty differently in the future. This one's like kind of rushed. I want to go a lot more in depth in the future. I want to have like more decks that are saying like, oh, this is a good deck for, if you're this kind of player, this is a good deck for this kind of player. Definitely a lot more. But right now I've been streaming like 10-hour days and I don't have a lot of time to prepare that kind of thing. So yeah, this is what we're doing for the first episode. It feels really weird to call these episodes, I'm gonna be honest with you, but the first episode. All right, so that's kind of like hopefully gonna help you guys understand like what's doing very, very well right now, and that's gonna be it for me. So I'm gonna go ahead and see you guys next time. Let me know if you have any ideas. I'm serious. I'm not doing that like YouTuber thing where I'm not being like, hey, comment for do the comments. Ask me if you have any questions. Legitimately, I'm not sure exactly what I want to do with this format, and I'm very, very, very happy to have ideas for, suggestions on what would be good for these kind of weekly meta reports, right? And there's a ton of ideas out there, so let me know what you think. All right, guys, I'll see you guys tomorrow.